This program is made possible through the generous support of Domtar.
The book that we are reading is Angel Tree by Robin Muller, who did both the text and the illustration. Long ago, far to the west of the Pocahontas River, an ancient tree stood in the yard of a run-down smithy. The tree's bark was scarred, its branches were broken and bent. The few leaves that had sprouted from its boughs hung limp from the fumes coming from the smithy's forge. If that tree ain't dead, it's dying, the townspeople would yell at Kit, the blacksmith's apprentice. It ought to be cut down into kindling. Kit hated these taunts. He loved the tree. He loved to scramble up its trunk and stretch himself out on one of its boughs. His eyes would follow the tangle of branches that reached like pathways to the sky. "I won't let anyone cut you down," he whispered to the tree. "Just please don't die." For 7 long years, ever since his parents' death, Kit had worked for Grimshaw the blacksmith. From the first crack of dawn until the stars speckled the night sky, the boy hauled coal, fetched water, and worked the furnace's bellows until his arms ached and sweat soaked his shirt. One afternoon, while emptying a scuttle of ashes, Kit stopped beneath the tree to watch a song sparrow that was hopping from bough to bough. The little bird dropped onto a branch just above the boy's head and, fixing him with a shiny black eye, burst into a cascade of song. Never before had Kit heard anything so beautiful. The whole world seemed to be trembling to the sound. He closed his eyes and let the melody flow through him. Suddenly, Kit gasped as a lump of coal struck him on the shoulder. Grimshaw stood in the doorway of the smithy, scowling. "You lazy, good-for-nothing," he yelled. "I'll teach you not to loaf on my time." And he picked up another chunk and hurled it at the bird. The sparrow disappeared in a whir of feathers as the coal smacked against a branch, then bounced back, hitting the blacksmith square in the face. "Get me my axe," roared the man. Not daring to argue, Kit raced into the smithy and picked up an axe. While Grimshaw shouted curses at the tree, the boy pounded the edge against an anvil. Then he hurried back out onto the yard. "Give me that thing," the man yelled, and he tore the axe from Kit's hands. With a wild cry, the blacksmith began whacking the tree. A crowd quickly gathered to watch. Grimshaw struck the tree again and again, but despite the great force of his blows, only a small piece of bark fell off. Finally, the blacksmith stopped and ran his thumb along the edge of the blade. "This axe is as dull as a chair leg," he bellowed, turning on Kit. As the boy backed away, an old man laughed and yelled, "Grimshaw's axes couldn't cut cheese." Like a striking rattlesnake, the blacksmith's fist shot out, knocking the old-timer to the ground. "No one laughs at Grimshaw," he snarled, and flinging down the axe, he stormed off. When the crowd had gone, Kit examined the tree. Shattered bark surrounded a small wound. The boy mixed up some mud and gently smoothed it into the opening. As he finished, the bird again burst into song. The wondrous melody rose and fell, then flowed into lilting words. Someone was singing. As he looked up, the boy's eyes grew wide with astonishment. Sitting on the branch just above his head, swinging her legs and singing with all her heart, was an angel. When the angel finished, she smiled at Kit. "Thank you for protecting my tree," she said. "Without your quick thinking, that cruel man would have killed it." Kit blushed. "I wouldn't let anyone hurt this tree," he said softly. "But why do you call it yours? I thought angels lived in heaven." "Oh, we do," replied the ancient, "but as a human child, I planted the seed that grew into this tree. For years I cared for it as it grew tall and beautiful. But that was long ago," she said with a sigh. "Now, I am afraid, it is dying." "The tree mustn't die," cried Kit. "I'll care for it. Just tell me what to do." "Oh, I had hoped you would say that," said the angel as she glided down from the branch. "But you will need help." And she led Kit into the forge. As Kit worked the bellows, the angel picked a broken piece of wheel rim from the floor. Using the blacksmith's tongs, she thrust it into the furnace. With a roar, the coals leapt into a blinding blue flame, transforming the metal into a dainty trowel. She then placed an old hinge among the coals. White light crackled, and she ruined a pair of delicately curved shears. Finally, she found a rusty cowbell and pushed it into the fiery depths. Golden light filled the room as the cowbell became a beautifully curved pitcher. The angel plunged the items into a bucket of cool water and then set them before Kit. The tools were blacker than wet coal, but shot through with swirling strands of silver. "Even in the deepest darkness," the angel told the boy, "there is a silver thread of hope." This little trowel can penetrate rock. It can pierce deep into the earth, breaking the hard and packed soil so that the tree's roots can stretch and grow. These shears can snip through the thickest limb, cut away the dead wood, and wherever you cut, new shoots will appear. And water poured from this pitcher will flow through the heart of the wood, giving new life to the old tree. Kit gazed at the objects with awe. "Take the tools and use them well," said the angel. "If you succeed, you will receive the greatest gift heaven and earth can give." "I just want the tree to live," Kit said, as the angel melted into the evening gloom. A chill breeze swept through the smithy. Gathering up the tools, Kit hurried to the loft where he slept and hid them beneath his straw bed. That night, Kit dreamed he was walking along a path in a starlit forest. At the end of the path stood the tree. Blossoms shimmered among its leaves like candles. At its peak, bathed in silver light, was the angel. Kit opened his eyes and smiled. A figure moved in the dark at the foot of his bed. "Angel, is that you?" he whispered excitedly. "I ain't no angel," snarled Grimshaw as he stepped from the shadows, "but I'll be the devil if you don't quit your dreaming and get back to work." And turning from the boy, he disappeared down the ladder. "Dreaming?" Kit repeated. He anxiously felt beneath the straw for his tools. They were gone. He tore at his coarse mattress. "There was an angel," he cried frenetically. "There was." But as the weeks passed, he began to believe that the angel and the wonderful tools had only been a dream. One evening, while Grimshaw was away, Kit sat beneath the tree. Its branches looked like bones in the cold moonlight. "I may have dreamed the angel," he sighed, "but one thing I do know. The tree will die if I don't do something, and fast." High above him, a sparrow began to sing. Kit listened for a moment, then jumped to his feet. "I'll make the tools I need myself," he cried. Kit set to work. Soon the smithy was ringing with the clang of the hammer and the roar of the bellows. The furnace glowed like the eye of an angry giant. Finding an old piece of wheel rim, the boy thrust it into the fire. The moment it burned red, he placed it on the anvil. Ripples of flaming light danced over him as he feverishly pounded the glowing metal into a trowel. From an old set of hinges, he shaped and molded a pair of shears, and from a battered cowbell, he crimped and hammered a pitcher. Biting steam choked him as he plunged the objects into a bucket of water. Once they were cooled, Kit stood back to admire the results of his labor. His tools were not beautiful, but at least he had something to work with. In the weeks that followed, Kit cared for the tree. Soon his hands were raw and blistered, and his back burned with pain. His little trowel would constantly bend, trying to break up the packed soil. His shears were good for only the smallest branches, and the pitcher leaked more water than it carried. Worst of all, his toil seemed to make no difference. The tree was clearly dying. Late one night, while the boy lay in his loft, a wagon rolled into the yard. It was old and oddly decorated with bells and fantastic creatures carved in wood. A plump little man with a tall hat and a curving mustache jumped down from the wagon. "Blacksmith," he called, "my horse needs a new slipper. You must attend to her at once." "The nag needs 4 new slippers," Grimshaw snapped after examining the beast. "Can you pay?" "You insult me, sir," the man said, bowing. "I am Professor Cosmos, conjurer, alchemist, collector of wonders." From his pocket, the little man produced a lacquered box decorated with mysterious symbols. He carefully picked a small gray pebble from the ground and placed it in the box. Then he closed the lid, turned the box upside down, and reopened it. In place of the pebble was a sparkling yellow nugget. "Will this be enough?" the professor asked. Grimshaw greedily snatched the nugget and examined it closely. It was pure gold. "Just enough," replied the blacksmith, "and when I'm done, I have a wonder that I can show you." Through a gap in the boards, Kip watched the 2 men. When Grimshaw had finished shoeing the horse, he called the professor to him. The blacksmith produced a battered strong box, and he unlocked it. To the boy's horror, he brought out the angel's tools. "Watch this," Grimshaw said in a hushed tone. He took a twig and he thrust it into the ground. Then he stabbed the earth around it with the trowel. Onto the broken soil, he poured liquid from the pitcher. Finally, he snipped off the top of the stick with the shears. The twig began to tremble. Delicate branches sprouted, unfurling tiny leaves. In the beat of a heart, a perfect little tree stood before them. "These tools never fail," Grimshaw laughed as he yanked up the young tree and threw it on the fire. "And they can be yours," he said slyly, "in exchange for that box." "Agreed," Cosmos said, handing Grimshaw the box. "A wonder for a wonder." Then the professor gathered up his tools, climbed up into the wagon, and with a tip of his hat, rolled away. Kit scrambled down the ladder. "Look here, boy," Grimshaw yelled. A box that turns stones to gold. I'm going to be rich." Kit didn't stop to listen. He had to get his tools back. He hurried to the road, but the wagon had vanished. The boy's blood froze at the thought of losing the tools again. Then, out of the darkness, he heard a distant tinkling of bells. Without hesitating, he ran after the sound. He ran so fast, he thought his lungs would burst. Finally, on the road far outside of town, he found the wagon and breathlessly called to the driver to stop. Please, sir, these tools are mine," Kit gasped, and he explained how the blacksmith had stolen them. "An angel gave them to me so I might save a tree. I'll give you everything I own," he pleaded, "but I've got to have those tools." Professor Cosmos stared into the boy's eyes. "No payment necessary," he said finally, and put the tools in the boy's hands. "I know the difference between fireflies and fairies, and I can recognize angels' work when I see it. Besides," he said with a wink, "angels have a way of repaying both good and evil. You take these tools, and save the tree. Kit raced back to the smithy. Grimshaw lay snoring on a bed of yellow pebbles. The sun was rising as the boy climbed the tree and snipped off the sick and dead branches. Wherever the shears touched, the wood fell away. As the tree's base, he broke up the hard earth. He could feel the trowel power going deep into the ground. Then Kit poured the sparkling water from the pitcher. The tree trembled gently as the liquid sank into the ground and touched the roots. New leaves began to sprout and fragrant blossoms appeared. The more Kit worked, the more the tree took on a new life and new beauty. Townspeople gathered, marveling at the sight. The tree stood like a glorious green sentinel. All at once, the blossoms fell away in a shower of petals, leaving plump, ripe fruit suspended like golden globes against the foliage. From a low-hanging bough, Kit plucked one of the fruit. Before he could taste it, he was startled by an angry roar from the smithy. Grimshaw, smeared in yellow powder, staggered into the yard. "I've been swindled," he bellowed, shaking the lacquered box. "It doesn't turn pebbles into gold. It just coats them in dust, yellow dust. I traded the angel's tools for this?" He crushed the little box. "If I ever lay my hands on that thieving cosmos, I'll—" Then Grimshaw caught sight of Kit standing before the tree, the trowel in his hand. You helped that crook cheat me," he screamed wildly, "just so you could save this blasted tree. Well, I'll teach you." Grimshaw tore the trowel from Kit's hand and with a roar plunged it into the tree. The blade went into the wood as though it were paper. Again and again the blacksmith stabbed. The tree shuddered. Branches groaned and cracked. With the sound of thunder, a great limb snapped and crashed through the roof of the smithy. Within moments, flames were licking the splintered shingles as scattered coals from the forge turned the building into an inferno. A torrent of fire shot into the sky and swept through the branches of the tree, setting it ablaze. The sky blackened as wind sent smoke and flaming leaves sweeping over the town. "Fire! Fire!" screamed the townspeople. As buckets of water were thrown on the flames, an angry mob turned on the blacksmith. "I don't care if the whole town burns to the ground," he howled at Kit. "No one gets the better of Grimshaw and gets away with it." The smithy leapt onto a horse and drove his boots heels deep into the creature's side. The frightened beast reared wildly, then galloped away, carrying the blacksmith into the billowing gloom. The next morning, Kit looked at the remains of the tree. It stood against the sky like a broken pitchfork. In a smoldering heap of ashes, the boy uncovered an old piece of wheel rim, a scorched hinge, and a cowbell that had been twisted by the heat. Nearby lay the fruit he had picked. Kit held the fruit in his hand and wept. He thought of the tree and how he had failed to protect it. With a piece of wheel rim, he dug a hole and he buried the fruit beneath the charred roots of the tree. The people of the town rallied around the boy. Together, they cleared away the ruins and rebuilt the smithy, appointing Kit as the blacksmith. All winter, Kit manned the forge. The townspeople were pleased with their choice, for Kit soon proved himself to be a better blacksmith than Grimshaw. One morning in spring, as Kit worked the forge, a sound caught his ear, a sound he had not heard in a long time. He put down his hammer and listened. It was the song sparrow. The boy turned, and there, reaching out to him, was the angel. Kit hung his head. I'm sorry," he said. I tried, but I failed to save the tree." But you did save the tree, beamed the angel. By planting its fruit, you allowed it to live again. And taking him by the hand, she led Kit into the yard. Where the old tree had stood was a young sapling in full bloom. This sapling will grow, and from its fruit other trees will grow, for life renewed is the silver thread of hope in the darkness. There is no greater gift in heaven or on earth than that. As Kit watched, the young tree did seem to grow. Its limbs stretched across the sky, and its branches reached up and touched the heavens. And sitting on every branch, singing, was an angel. That's The Angel Tree by Robin Muller.